Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norma Juarez, and I work in the Alumni Relations Office at UNC. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the Alumni Career Panel, International Careers. We are honored to be hosting such an amazing group of alumni professionals this afternoon, joining us from across the United States and the Czech Republic. Before we get started, I want to share a couple of housekeeping items with you all. This event is being recorded and will be available on demand in the next couple of days on the alumni website, and I will be sharing that with you in the chat, so make sure you open that to have access to it. If you would like to reach out to our panelists after the event to ask additional questions and to start building your network, you can find their LinkedIn profile information in the chat as well. I will also go off of screen after introductions and will return shortly before we end the event to provide a closing statement. Now, please help me welcome our panelists. Panelists, can you please introduce yourself by stating your name, title, company, your UNC degree, and as little or as much as you would like to share with us about yourself. And Lisette, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Norma. So hi, everyone. My name is Lizette. My pronouns are she, hers, and currently I am a Gear Up advisor for a high school. And at UNC, I studied English, Spanish, and multicultural anthropology. And I did recently finish with a graduate certificate in cultural studies and equity. And I have worked abroad as a young adult English teacher in Asia and Europe. Pretty short term, like summer camps and half a year, and I speak 3 languages, learning a 4th one right now.
Thank you, Lisette. Casey.
All right, my name is Casey Lorenzen. I graduated in 2005 with a marketing degree. I'm currently the content manager for Fjallraven, which is a Swedish brand. We do outdoor apparel. Yeah, I've held a number of different roles with a global footprint. Before joining Fjallraven, I owned my own businesses for the better part of a decade, which kind of took me all over the world from a distribution and a manufacturing standpoint. Yeah, so happy to be here.
Thank you, Casey. Gary?
Hi, my name is Gary Molt. I graduated from UNC in '82 with a management admin specialization in finance degree. Got into communications, first with cable TV, then with telecom. Telecom led me to project management and kind of bounced back and forth between project management and tech. And then project management ended up because I had German and had been stationed over in Germany in the Army before I went to UNC. I was able to get a job as a German-speaking project manager here with IBM in the Czech Republic. And I've now graduated onto program management, which is running multiple projects, following basically the same path.
Thank you, Gary. Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa White, and I graduated from UNC with a marketing degree in 2005. And I am a foreign commercial service officer, which is a diplomatic role that is managed and overseen by the Department of Commerce. Most people are familiar with Department of State Foreign Service, so I'm also in foreign service, but it is under Department of Commerce. And so my current role, my job is to help American companies succeed in the international marketplace using federally backed tools to help them connect with buyers overseas. And as part of that role, I am in Seattle for the first 2 years, but I will be transitioning to a new embassy every 2 to 3 years after I complete my first posting here. This is actually my 4th federal agency. I started my career in public service after joining the Peace Corps, where I served in West Africa for 3 years directly following graduation and learned how to speak French. And from there, I've been to a couple of different federal agencies. I really enjoy a life of public service, and I'm excited to be here with these other distinguished panelists.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And now I will hand it off to Jacob, who will be our moderator today. Jacob.
Thank you, Norma. And thank you to the Alumni Association for putting this event together today and getting some amazing panelists to come and help educate our fellow Bears about the global opportunities that are out there for them. My name is Jacob Sutton. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm an international advisor in the UNC Center for International Education. I graduated in 2018 with my master's degree in higher education and student affairs leadership, but I have been working in the state of Colorado with international students since 2016. So I'm really glad to get to work here and get to work with some of our amazing students and scholars from around the world. And I also get to be a part of awesome events like this. I do want to encourage participants today to take advantage of the Q&A function. We will be using that and monitoring that throughout the conversation today. And we want to be able to get whatever questions that you all may have and share those with the panelists to try and make this event as applicable and relevant to you as possible. We are also going to have some pre-prepared questions that we will share with the panelists and we'll ask them all to respond to. And hopefully we'll have some more time at the end for questions. And I will be weaving in some of the questions that some of you asked as you signed up for the event that you pre-submitted as well. So without further ado, unless my colleagues from the Alumni Association have anything to add, we can go ahead and we will get started with the questions for today. Awesome. So our first question for today is for everyone serving on the panel. And the question is, what experiences from your time at UNC led you to a career with a global footprint? And we'll go ahead and everyone can answer, but we will have Casey start this one off.
Sounds good. Yeah, and when it comes to this question, I think there's a lot that could be said around this, but for me, I really kind of start to hone in on involvement. And not just involvement in your daily, schedule with classes and everything, but for me, a big part of this was involvement in different activities, different clubs, but also expanding just my social network, and really kind of branching out from kind of what I was comfortable with and the kind of the norm of what I was used to, if you would, and really just kind of meeting new people and kind of, I guess, pushing yourself to do a little bit more and kind of see how other people think and interact. Because I think coming out of high school for me, it was I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't until I got to UNC where I started to see kind of different paths and different opportunities and ways that I could maybe use my skills and it just kind of opened up different avenues for me. So it really kind of enabled me to kind of hone in on kind of what my passions would be and try to align that to a career that, I would enjoy for the long term. And so, yeah, when it comes to that, I think meeting new people was a huge thing for me. I grew up in Colorado. I grew up on the Front Range. So I was kind of used to, seeing a lot of the same faces. And for me, it was kind of a branch out for me to kind of go in a different direction and meet some different people and have different friend groups. And I think that was a huge thing for me. And so, yeah, networking is a huge part.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Lisa, would you be willing to take the next stab at this one?
Sure. So specifically my experiences at UNC that led me to interest in a global career were, I thought that the business program offered by the Montfort School was just excellent. I loved the professor program where they brought in actual real life business professionals to teach classes. And I do remember being impacted by the international marketing class that I took in business school there. I thought it was really well done. As part of that class, we studied international marketing examples from around the world, and it really got me thinking globally. But the thing that really, truly turned me on to a global career was actually having the Peace Corps recruiter come and do an info session on campus. And he came and did it actually in Montfort Hall, which is, he was recruiting specifically business students because they were just in the midst of expanding the Small Business Development Peace Corps volunteer program in 2005. And so I really benefited from attending that info session. So I'd recommend, just staying open to new ideas when there's info sessions coming to you, especially to your school. Take advantage of what's going on campus and learn about all the possibilities.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gary, would you mind going next?
Sure. Well, before I even went to UNC, like I mentioned, I was in the Army over in Germany, and I'd had a couple of years of German from high school. And so it was actually pretty rewarding for me, especially getting out in little towns and meeting people and stuff where they hadn't been exposed to the U.S. Army, so they're much friendlier. But then after I got into UNC, I decided, well, there weren't a lot of class available as a freshman, so I took German. And I had a very charismatic German teacher who had summer trips to Germany, which I never managed to muster up enough money for, and I always regretted that. But that gave me more of an inspiration to want to take the language and maybe do something with it later. And then I had a lifelong friend I met there my first year, his father was an international oil man, and these guys had led a most interesting life. I mean, they'd been in about 8 different countries, gone to boarding school in Switzerland, lived in Athens, in Egypt, Scotland, Norway. And they were probably what really inspired me to want to work internationally. And it took a long time, worked for a lot of companies that had international opportunities, and I just kept on getting them turned down, or got married and turned them down for myself. But this one just came out of the blue, and I'm pretty late in life when it came, and I just bit onto it. It took me like 5 times of pestering the hiring manager, but I finally got the job, and been here 7 years now. So, yeah, if those experiences with my teacher and the friend that I met at UNC hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have had the inspiration.
Thank you. And then Lisette, would you mind finishing us off on this one?
So I was a first generation student going into UNC. And once I learned you can study abroad, I was like, yes, I have to do this. But it took me a while to get to it. I did get involved on campus, kind of like what Casey mentioned, meeting new people and just opening more doors for opportunities. And that's how I met others that also studied abroad, and I asked them questions and really got myself motivated to go. And so I did it. It was so much fun. And then I came back and I worked as a study abroad peer advisor. So I got to learn a lot about the programs that I just didn't know about, that I had options. And there was a conference called Lessons from Abroad for study abroad returnees that want an international career. So I went to that, and that's where I really narrowed down that I wanted to do teaching. And then also through the study abroad fairs that we would have at the UC, I found out about the Guy Healy Japan partnership with UNC, and I applied literally last minute, and I got that. So after that, I knew I wanted to keep teaching. So I got certified to teach English in Prague, in the Czech Republic, which was so much fun. And then they do have an online job board. So whenever I want to go somewhere, I just look at what jobs they have, and then I can go.
That is awesome. And actually, all of this kind of leads into one of our first questions from the Q&A panel today. And this question says, I'm interested in working internationally, but I'm not sure what role/career direction I want to take. Where should I start? And I'll open this up to anyone who would like to respond.
Well, I can contribute somewhat to that. Obviously, IT is big. Networking, coding, if those hold any interest for you, there's a lot of companies that some won't even ask for language skills, but language skills are always good. If you want to work in Europe, German's probably your best language. And you may not work in Germany, but there's a lot of companies, big companies based in Central and Eastern Europe that are hiring people, and basically they're stealing jobs from Western Europe. so it's like offshoring type of thing on there. But if you're into medicine, I don't know if UNC is still a nursing school. It was in my day, but those that are into nursing, I mean, especially if you have language skills, you wouldn't have any problem at all getting there, because lots of, in my country, Czech, they learn German and go off to work in Germany and Austria pretty regularly. So you can pretty much get any of the Western European countries are looking for medical professionals. So even in the UK, so you wouldn't necessarily have to have language skills there, but those are some of the opportunities I'm aware of.
I would quickly add, English is basically the language of business, I want to say someone said once. So everywhere young adults are learning it, so are adults, and there's always that, because we should already know English, right? Being here.
Awesome. I am going to move us on to our second question. And this question is from some of our pre-prepared ones. And this is for Gary, Lisette, and Casey. What is the process like when preparing to work abroad? Were you sponsored by a company or organization? And Gary, would you lead us off on that one?
Sure. Yeah, for me, it worked out relatively smoothly. I mean, IBM offered me the job, worked with a contract company that helped prepare all the documentations. They sent me everything that I needed to get. It was very extensive. I had to get transcripts and everything. I had to have interviews for both project management and German, and because they have to prove to the Czech government that they're hiring you for a reason and not one of their own people. So they check with your previous employers to find out your experience and stuff. But yeah, they processed most of the documentation for me and got the visa set up for me and stuff. So one thing I will add though, check out countries. Greece is a country that's looking for digital nomads. So people that are into project management, into other stuff on there, that's a place you can look to. Forgot to mention that earlier. So thought I'd throw that in. So yeah, that you can get online and find out what they require.
Awesome, thank you. Lisette, would you answer it next?
Mhm. Yeah, so lots of paperwork. It can get overwhelming and it can be a process, but that is probably literally like what makes it to like, yes, you will go, or yes, or no, you won't go. So just being patient, ask questions about it because they're sending it for a reason. And with my gigs, they were all pretty short term and I worked for smaller companies. So it was just working with them one-on-one. It could vary with, I would stay with families for like home stays, or they would house me, or I even chose where I would be at one point because I felt like I knew enough of the place already. For the most part, I'd have to buy my airfare out there just because I was just commuting literally back and forth between continents. But I always just kind of learned to fly into the cheapest place and then make my way down because I'm just pretty like on the fly about that stuff. So that's how I did it.
Awesome. Casey?
Yeah, for me, it's been a kind of a mixed bag. I've had different roles, various roles working internationally, and so each one has kind of had their own process. When I owned my own business, that was largely just on my shoulders to not only find suppliers and source factories and make those distribution connections, stuff like that. That was pretty much all up to myself and my business partner. And when it came to that, it was a lot of just a lot of research as far as visas and permitting and how you can stay in the country for extended periods, and that was a lot of trial and error. When we first went into Vietnam, we landed there and realized that we had the wrong visa, and so some processes are going to take a little longer depending on where you go. And in my current role, I work for a global brand, and so a lot of that kind of the back end stuff is kind of taken care of for me, which is super nice. But I would say that across the board, process with all of it, when you start working internationally, is one bit of advice I would give is do your research on kind of business customs and practices in the area you're going to be in. I've done work in Japan and Czech Republic, like some of the panelists here as well. In different areas, they approach it differently. And so that was also kind of a learning curve for me and my business partner, and just kind of throughout my career is kind of knowing nuances of how business is done. Luckily, I think I kind of learned quickly and went with the flow, but definitely didn't come without its hiccups here and there. One example I'll give is, we had a Japanese distributor that we were starting to work with, and we'd had communication and meetings with, some of their managers, throughout the process. But when we went to Tokyo to meet with the president of the company, which was a pretty big company, we're a couple younger guys. I've got visible tattoos on my arms and everything, and we show up to the meeting with like short sleeve shirts on, and luckily one of the managers we were with was like in a super nice way, as nice as possible, was like asked if we could politely put some long sleeves on, just because tattoo culture is viewed so differently out there. And so that was kind of a slap in the face, almost, of like, oh geez, like it's a little bit different here, and so I think that would be one bit of advice I would give, is just looking more into the culture and kind of their business practices before you dive into it.
Awesome. And we do kind of have a follow-up question in the Q&A that I want to wrap into this. So the question says, how do I find entry-level business positions abroad? I know visa sponsorship can be hard. Additionally, when do I start looking during my senior year? And any of you could take a chance at answering that one.
What you might look into is, finding some company that does the kind of work that you want to do. These internships can be very important, even if you're just doing them in the US. We hired a lot of interns here from local universities that we had working for us. So, the opportunity for you to go to work with a company with a global footprint, it may not get you there immediately. You can't always be in a hurry. Like I said, I didn't get my dream happen until I was over 60. So, don't give up on those. But I doubt if any of it take that long. If I'd been smart enough to know to go to work for a company that had an international presence, and even as an intern and stuff on there when I was younger, I might have had a much sooner time of it. But that's one of the best opportunities I think you can get. It's not easy. Most foreign countries, they don't have the low unemployment rate that the US does. So they're going to be looking after their own people first. But if you've got skills and you prove yourself, especially for an international organization, a lot of times those opportunities can happen for you.
I would also just chime in, if I may, and recommend looking at U.S. government opportunities that may not be 100% in the business field right away, but would be good temporary internships abroad. The Department of State Foreign Service has an internship program abroad, as does the U.S. Commercial Service, which is the agency I'm working with now. And it's an opportunity to work at the U.S. Embassy at countries overseas, which is a really great opportunity. And a lot of the interns who go through there end up applying and becoming Foreign Service officers later in life. But I, just as a Peace Corps, returned Peace Corps volunteer, I'd also recommend Peace Corps to anybody. It's a 2-year commitment. And Peace Corps has changed their application process since I served. You actually get to choose where you go now. It's like applying for a normal job online. And so I definitely recommend checking that out as well. And when I was a Peace Corps recruiter, it took about 6 months to a year from the date of application to actually get in. And so if you're a senior, definitely early is better than later in terms of researching your opportunities if you're looking at government opportunities abroad.
I would add on to that too. I think finding, even if it's entry level, I think finding positions and companies that align with your skill set and kind of finding good entry points. Whether that's an international company that is opening business in the US and they would like, somebody that has more experience in the US to come help them. I mean, that could be a good entry point, but I think also just looking for areas that suit your skill set the most that, some areas or some countries might be lacking in. I know Gary touched on, IT careers, stuff like that. And I think just really kind of finding where you want to be, but then also tagging on with what Lisa said. I think having that experience in whatever capacity, working, traveling abroad, I think that's always super helpful, especially to recruiters to see, oh, they do have international experience, even if it's not within the exact field that you want to be in. Ultimately, I think that says a lot.
Let me throw in language skills on there too. Like I mentioned, depends on where you want to work. But obviously, if you want to work in South America, Spanish would be good. If you want to work in Europe, German's good. One place that you can get an international position fairly easily if you've got some skills, even to some degree entry level. It sounds weird, but if you get there, you might make a lot of connections, is Doha, Qatar. Because of the World Cup there, they are really looking for a lot of people there. I've got a lot of friends considering it because the money is so good. Granted, it's going to be a pretty austere life for whatever time you're there, but it's a possible option to make some connections and get that stamp on your passport, show that you're willing to travel and stuff. But it's just another option that's out there.
Thank you. Lisette, we actually have a question that is specifically for you here. It says, I also have a TEFL certificate and was wondering if you have any tips in making yourself marketable and tips for preparing.
Mm-hmm. So marketable, kind of what everyone has been saying, that if you have that experience of just being elsewhere and adaptability, that goes a long way with just showing employers like, yes, they're willing to travel. Yes, they can function out here, wherever out here is. And then what was that second part of the question?
So the second part was about making yourself marketable and tips to prepare.
Tips to prepare. That research piece, definitely. And for me, it was knowing what age group I wanted to teach, because you can do literally any age group, and I really like the young learners. So I chose to find jobs where the population is majority young learners learning English. So just kind of little things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next question. And this question is for Lisa and Gary. What has your experience been as an American from the United States working with colleagues abroad? How does the culture or background of the constituents or colleagues you engage with impact your approach? And Lisa, would you be willing to take the lead on this one?
Sure, happy to. So for this, I'll reference my time living and working in Guinea and Mali in West Africa with the Peace Corps. It was a huge learning curve, and culture impacts how you view the world, and that's for everybody. And something interesting about American culture specifically is how much media and content we produce as a country. So there's going to be a lot of information hitting other countries before you ever step foot there. And so folks will have preconceived notions about what an American is like based off of the media that they've had access to, based off of our arts and culture and music, and the internet more so than ever. And so getting there, you're going to meet people who have preconceptions of you, just like you might have preconceptions of them based off of what you've researched. So I think it's really important to always approach every new culture with empathy and respect. And it's also interesting to consider the different ways of looking at life. Just as an example, there's direct cultures and indirect cultures. In a direct culture, you're more likely to say exactly what you mean and share your feelings, give direct feedback. In an indirect culture, it might be considered really impolite to say exactly what you mean, especially if it's just someone who is older than you or has more of a position of authority than you do. And so you really want to know what that culture is like going into it. Just kind of a fun example in Guinea. Guinea is a very indirect culture, and it is a scale. It's not necessarily black or white. There's going to be relativity when it comes to varying degrees of directness and indirectness. Even in the US, some people say that the East Coast, for example, is more direct than people who live on the West Coast. But Guinea, I would say, just relative to American culture in general, is way more indirect. And so it's considered impolite to ever say no in general. And so even to basic questions like, hey, can you give me the directions to this place? Even if someone doesn't know the directions, they're going to say yes. And they'll do their best to make up directions to get you somewhere, just because it's so impolite to ever say no, especially to a stranger who needs help. And so that's something that if you learn quickly, learn in advance, it helps you navigate the culture and navigate the business relationships. So definitely a huge part of adjusting to any new country, any new lifestyle is understanding what the cultural parameters look like, where you're going, and learning to respect those in advance.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, you have to be patient, be humble. You have to remember there's a lot of Americans that have gone before you that do not behave well. And they have made impressions in many different countries. With IBM, God, when I first got here, I was working with people from like 45, 50 different countries. It was like a mini United Nations. So it was, I loved it because I got exposure to so many different cultures. Got invited to come back to people's homes and visit their families. And, America doesn't always have the best reputation in the world, so, you got to have a thick skin sometimes because, you will get crap for what your government did. They're going to point their finger at you like you're responsible for that. You have to let them know you didn't wake up in the morning going, oh, what little third world country can we bomb the hell out of today? It's, so you just kind of got to have a thick skin, listen to them, be patient, understand where they're coming from. And as Lisa pointed out, the media sources they have to give their preconceived notions. So yeah, that would be my biggest suggestion, is just be patient, be humble, and don't let people's accusations or preconceived notions of America get to you. Just explain it as best you can, be polite, and yeah, that's how you end up making friends. So
Thank you. We have another question in the Q&A that I wanted to throw in here. This question says, if a company requires or desires foreign language skills, is it enough to be self-taught, or does it require some sort of proof, like a test, college credits, etc.? Also, are there any tips that you might have for improving language skills? And anyone can take a stab at this one.
I really improved my German with the Pimsleur language. I think that's the best I've found so far. It really improved my German. That alone probably isn't going to get you well enough to talk to a client, but I've heard people say Babbel is good too. The self-taught is fine. You don't have to have a university degree in it, because they're going to have somebody, you claim you speak the language, they're going to have somebody interview you in that language. So at least that was my experience. And like I said, I don't think you need the classes and stuff, because they can be very time consuming, very thorough, and you're probably going to get better language skills out of it. But from the language class I took at UNC, they occupied about 50% of my time for 25% of the hours. So, you can self-teach yourself. That Pimsleur is really good. That'll get you a really good leg up to about mid-level on any foreign language that has the full 4-session class availability on it.
I like to use an app called Duolingo, and it's free, so that's nice. But for some languages, they do kind of teach you up until like a certain level, and you can take the test and it'll be a little bit more like certified in this language, but I don't know which languages those are in.
A new tool that I used recently also online is italki, Italkie, and it's basically like the online Uber of language tutoring. And so you can meet with native speakers from around the world for 30-minute lessons to hour lessons. And I needed to pass the French diplomatic language test in order to get language qualified. And so that was a conversational oral test. And so I definitely needed to practice with a native French speaker to get up to speed for that one. So italki is a great tool for that.
Thank you. The next question that we will dive into, and this is for everyone, what advice do you wish you would have gotten at the start of your career? Where could fellow Bears go find information or resources on this topic?
All I can say is, if you've got interest in it, be a pit bull. Just go out there and research. Any one of us can kind of give you some tips on what we've experienced on there, but just start looking at foreign employment opportunities, anything, just let your mind wander on what you can find out on the internet. You can find all sorts of resources out there. I eventually want to retire down in Greece on the island of Crete. So, I'm constantly looking at what opportunities, because they're few and far between in Greece, to go work for another company. And then I found out about that digital nomad opportunity where Greece is really struggling. I mean, their economy is so based on tourism that, if you're willing to go live there and pay Greek taxes, you could, look at freelance jobs and work there if, you can meet their requirements. And, if you want to go work in a particular country, look what the opportunities are there. Just like I said, just research your butt off on there, and whatever areas interest you.
Yeah, I can go next. I think, just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think one thing I wish that I kind of would have been told when I was in college is that, opportunity is everywhere, as Gary kind of just mentioned, and looking outside of your bubble and looking outside of, extending past your comfort zone, kind of what I tagged on with earlier. But, really, I think, your skills are needed everywhere, and sometimes more so in other places and in other countries. And so, yeah, really just kind of finding where you could be suited, but also taking opportunities that may may not be your end goal. Before I started kind of deep in my career, I had this dream to work abroad in some capacity, and wasn't really, finding what I wanted to do, kind of that perfect vein of what I wanted or envisioned for myself. And so, I started looking at hospitality jobs, working at resorts abroad, and I think that's just so important too, to be there in some capacity, to be genuine and be yourself, and because that's when you're going to meet other people, and when new windows of opportunity open. So really just kind of finding anything that can suit you for the time being. But yeah, you just keep digging, finding the areas that you want to be in, or different fields, because yeah, your skill set can be utilized outside of your county or town.
And kind of a segue from this end is, if you want to, I know you folks that work for UNC probably don't want me to tell people this, but if you want to pursue like a master's program or a higher program, you can look at going to universities such as, we've got a lot of universities here in Brno, Czech Republic, Prague, as Lizette had mentioned, Wrocław, Poland is good. And these cities all have international footprints with large corporations. But the interesting thing about the students here is if you're a foreign student, you learn the language. So you have to learn the language the local language to get into the school and stuff. But the Czech Republic is very open to keeping people, foreign students here working. So they can get visas much easier. I have a lot of Russian and Ukrainian friends that have ended up working here that they're not part of the EU, so they don't have that free travel, free work availability. So you could consider studying abroad for your final year of school, and look at the doors that can open with that as well.
And Lisa, Lisa, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I guess advice that I would have liked to have received, that you don't need to have the answer, and you actually never need to have the answer of what is your dream career and how do you get there, because life isn't always about the future. It's about now and how you can make little adjustments to get somewhere really cool. And I think something like the average American was changing jobs every 7 years at around the time that I graduated. And I think that is even lower of a number now, so even more frequently. And so you may not have a career where you're in the same type of work or even the same industry for 40, 50 years. And you might need to try on a couple of different jobs before you find something that you're like, okay, this is my passion. And that's okay. The other thing I wish I would have known to look at before I got into my 30s was that certain countries have special visas for youth before you turn 30 that you can take advantage of working for an entire year abroad, for example, in Australia or New Zealand. So definitely research those youth visa opportunities to work abroad while you're under the age of 30.
Just to add, like with everyone that has been saying good things, is just relax, like be patient. I feel like as young people, we get so like caught up in like we need to have everything figured out because everyone's asking, and it's like no. I just kind of did my own thing after I graduated. I'm so glad I did, because we're going to be working almost all of our lives, and if you're not, then you're still lucky. But I was so glad to play before I like kind of went a little bit more full time in the US. As an undergrad, though, I do wish I would have gone to the study abroad office a little earlier, so that way I could have studied abroad twice, or, however, whatever the limit is. One resource that I use a lot still is goabroad.com, and they're actually based in Fort Collins. So it's really safe. Like instead of just Googling jobs abroad, you can just Google there and it'll tell you like volunteer, teaching, internships, etc. And also, I wish I would have kind of met a lot more international students while at UNC, so that way I could learn about other people and countries and just make those connections.
Lisette, that's actually a great segue. We received a question ahead of the event that some of you have alluded to, and it said, how does someone interested gain experience while in school for an international experience or job? So would anybody else, or Lisette, would you like to add anything else? I'd love to get some of your responses on that too.
I know sometimes faculty lead study abroad kind of trips for a week or something, and that's pretty short term. More of the internships, volunteer, sometimes you can get paid. Well, actually, they might pay for where you stay and you just kind of work for free, but that's kind of a good balance, I think. So just kind of any of those options. I don't know if anyone else has any more to add.
It's not exactly above board, but I've certainly known people that have gone to countries and worked under the table too in the hospitality industry. So that's always a possibility too. Had a Ukrainian intern for us that she went over, like I said, Ukraine's not EU. So yeah, she went over to Spain and worked under the table for about 6 months so she could improve her Spanish language skills.
Yeah, I would maybe just add that it works both ways. I think as we've kind of alluded, if you can't go to another country, try to align with other people from other countries. I had a couple Russian interns at one point that was super exciting because we became friends, and after they moved back to Russia, there were opportunities that opened up for me out there. I didn't take them, but if it was something that was open to me in that point of my life, and it was just another opportunity that wouldn't have been there had I not had somebody involved in my business, from abroad. So
Thank you for that. I'm actually going to segue into our next question, which is for Lisa and Casey. And this question is, thinking of your industry, what global international challenge or opportunity should UNC Bears be looking to address? And Lisa, would you like to start us off on that?
Sure. I think there's just so many opportunities. Literally any interest you have can be applied to an international setting if you get creative enough and have the right network. My personal experience is being a public servant working for the US government. And so there's a lot of different departments that do international work in the US government. Just in terms of what is for sure going to be coming down the pipeline in the future is the response to climate change and working on sustainable and renewable energy solutions. And so there's always going to be opportunity in that industry, in that area. In fact, even supporting US businesses who are selling abroad, we are seeing an increase across the renewable energy sector across the board. So that's a good sector to look into. But yeah, you don't even necessarily need to pick one lane. You could just pick a country and say, my goal is to get to this country, and then research that country to figure out what kinds of jobs and openings they have. Kind of a tip that I'll give you is to look at the work visa immigration list to see what their long-term skill shortages are. Because that's where they will award work visas if you have a skill that meets that. And it's not something you can just put on your resume. Usually it's a actual certificate or degree that you need to have to prove that you have that skill. So definitely worth researching and aligning with the country that you're interested in getting to.
Thank you. Casey?
Yeah, I think specific to my industry, in the outdoor industry, I'd say something that's not just regional right now, but would also be global is diversity. Diversity in the workforce, diversity in your messaging is become, over the last year or two is really kind of come to the forefront in the outdoor industry. And I would also say in the lifestyle and action sports industries as well. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for, people with diverse backgrounds to bring something new to teams and to kind of have a fresh perspective. I think a lot of companies are kind of looking to expand past like what their kind of niche has been for a long time. I mean, especially, we've seen it a lot with the pandemic, is more and more people are starting to get outside, and that could be anything. That's not just the hardcore climber that's summiting peaks. I mean, that's people getting out with their families. It's people riding bikes. It's just people getting out. And so there's a lot of kind of shift, within our industry to tell stories that can relate to a broader range of people. So that would be one huge opportunity I would see, and not just in the outdoor industry, like I said, but I think across multiple industries. So
Thank you. We have another question that we received ahead of the event that I'd like to share with everyone. And this one refers to for how difficult it was to get started in an international career, what are the biggest personal difficulties you faced in your experience? And I'll let whoever would like to start out with that one.
I can jump in on that one. I think I personally probably family difficulties. Having a wife and young kids, to be gone for a large part of the year. In a normal year, I'd say it can definitely take its toll. If you ask my wife, she probably would say that it's okay sometimes that I'm gone as much as I am, but no, and I think it just comes with the territory. I think if it's something that you're really passionate about, and if pursuing an international career is what you want to do, it comes with the territory. So definitely has its challenges, but it also, I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons in most cases. So.
For me, it was when I first got here, IBM has their own way of doing things. And because I didn't have any experience with IBM, they had trouble finding a team that would accept me. I finally found one, and then I was able to start showing what I could do. And I've spent 6 of my 7 years working for that team. But basically just, again, the patience, just figure out what, go slowly, figure out what you're going to do, what can you do, what can you offer, come up with ideas, again, be humble. Again, people have these preconceived notions of Americans being know-it-alls and bossy and stuff on there. So, you just kind of cast ideas out there until you start feeling your niche and get your comfort zone going. It's not going to be an immediate welcoming opportunity on there for you, but in most cases. So, but in response to number 5, I didn't get a chance to pitch in on that one. For me, working for an IT company, AI is going to permeate everything. The where that technology is going, no one can have any possible idea. So anybody that's into coding, anybody that's like the gamer type mentality, if you like that, oh God, are you going to have a career? The cloud computing, that's really going to explode. Learning about networking, but even like what I do as project manager, you can still do the people skill roles, but you still want to learn the technical aspects of what you're going to be what your projects are going to be. But the beauty of something like project management is you can do it anywhere. I have not been in my office for over a year, and I don't need to be in my office. We use WebEx, but we just do video calls and it's working fine. Whether we're working with clients or whether we're working in teams and stuff on there. So fintech with blockchain, if you're into business and stuff, learn blockchain. That's another really great opportunity to find jobs. And if you're really good at what you do, the language skills may not be required, but you get some skills and stuff behind you and get to know what you're doing, and you're really good at it. That can help you with international opportunities as well.
Thank you. And then Lisette or Lisa, did you all have anything you wanted to add to the personal difficulties question?
I can add a small bit. So being a woman, I think is something to consider, like, where are you going? And I know for me, I chose places where I feel like is pretty much like gender relations and pretty much like the US, or my family's from Mexico. So places I would feel more comfortable being in. But that family piece was a big piece of like, why are you gone for so long and stuff like that. So that's why I took short-term jobs.
I was really lucky and benefited from my dad's lesson growing up of living below your means. And so when you're looking at a career where you're interested in actually moving to different countries or different places every couple of years, it's important to be nimble and not really have a whole bunch of stuff you have to pack up or sell every time before you leave. And so the lighter you pack, the easier it is to head out to a new place. So living below your means, and that also means not as much as you can, avoid credit card debt and things like that. Just trying to make sure you're financially able to move on to the next place when it's time to go and the next opportunity comes up, which certainly, is super challenging, especially in economies like today, but just doing the best you can within your means.
Thank you. So this brings us to our final prepared content question for today's content. And this question is, can you provide a final word of advice for UNC Bears considering a career abroad or a career with an organization overseas? And anyone can take the first opportunity to answer this.
Don't give up. Like I said, it may not, don't give up on your dreams. If they're really, if you have a dream that you really want one way or another, sooner or later, you're going to find a way to make it happen. I mean, I would have dearly loved to do this 30 years ago. I would have had more fun, but I'm having the time of my life now. This was the best choice I ever made. I really enjoy living and working here. I love the other cultures. I love my international friends. So just, every time you get kicked in the teeth and something you hope for didn't work out, and I had numerous situations like that, you just keep on moving on, and sooner or later some opportunity may happen, and just bite onto it and don't let go. Make it happen for yourself. Took me 5 times calling the hiring manager here to get her to hire me, but I didn't have anything to lose, so what the hell.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I would just say do it. Like Gary said, just keep trudging until you can make it happen. If it's something that you really want, then you'll find a way. I'd say for me, I've experienced more growth in my career because I've worked internationally. I've met people from all over the world. I have friends in every corner of the country, and it's something I wouldn't trade for anything. I've added skill sets to what I do within my career because of it, that opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I think just being able to see and experience different cultures and the way the world works, and it's irreplaceable, honestly. I mean, there could be instances where you're not making as much money because of it, but for some people that's okay. And I don't know, you get to see the world, so that's kind of the biggest perk to all of it. So I think we're probably all in the same boat on this panel, in that we wouldn't be in these careers if we didn't want to see other parts of the world. So yeah, just do it.
I guess I would just echo my fellow panelists' great advice. Don't give up, keep trying, just do it. And I would just add to that, you can do hard things, and sometimes you have to take a risk and put yourself out there. When someone recommended that I go out for the Foreign Service assessment, my first initial thought was, oh, there's no way I'm going to get in. That's such a hard thing to do. And I almost let that stop me from trying. And so don't be intimidated. Don't give up without trying. Definitely take risks, and you'll be impressed and hopefully pleasantly surprised by what you can do.
If I haven't mentioned this already, study abroad if you can. Watch movies or TV shows from different countries. You'll learn a lot about the language that, like, in kind of real life or so. Be open to places. Don't just kind of narrow your focus on this one country and this country only kind of thing. Learn a language, another one if you want to. Also, once you're at the place that you want to be, do stuff that you would do at home, like hobbies. Keep up with those. That's how you'll meet people and, make friends, and of course, stay healthy and safe.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing that. I think with that completes the pre-prepared questions and the questions from the Q&A that we had for today. And I will go ahead and hand it back over to Norma.
Thank you so much, Jacob, and to all of our panelists. Thank you for your time, your insight, and I always walk away feeling with a bucket full of knowledge and just joy of your experiences and all of the great things that you all are doing. And thank you for sharing that with all of us. We look forward to seeing everybody who joined us today at any of our upcoming alumni career panels this spring. I shared the alumni website on the chat, so be sure to check that out for the upcoming event and also for the on-demand recording of this event. To all of you, thank you for your time and your insight. I very much appreciate each and every one of you, and go Bears.